your button's not buttoning. Sorry about that. Bulletin has a ticker code of BNR. We're a well-funded explorer in Western Australia. Currently have well-funded with cash, shares and receivables of about $12 million and a current market cap of about $20 million. The board's well invested in the company with 25% of the capital, and the top 20 shareholders own approximately 50%. We're very active in Western Australia. We've got gold, nickel, and now a new lithium project. And this morning released some first results from our lithium project, which I'd love to talk to you about. Ravensthorpe Lithium Project, we picked up last year. Since then, we've finally got it granted early this year, and we've got our environmentals approved to start working on it. It's only 12 kilometres from Mount Catherine lithium mine. So it used to be called Galaxy. Orocobre brought it over early this year. We're along strike of Mount Catherine, and we've got the same geology. Previous work in the area we knew there were pegmatites on the ground, but exploration stopped fairly early in the piece, mainly because of the low lithium price of a few years ago. We just returned from the field and we've seen spodumene and lithium and lepidolite, on the ground, and we're pretty keen to get this project going. Just as a bit of background to it, we've had a look at the previous data. There's two main pegmatite trends. The eastern pegmatite trend, where historical work said there was spodumene, and the western pegmatite trend, which had a bit more lepidolite in it and was the main focus for the previous explorers. We're focusing on the spodumene side of things, as Mount Catherine's just down the road. Went to the field a couple of weeks ago, as I said, took some field mapping. It's all out on just surface mapping just now. We picked up 37 samples of various lithium minerals, including wall rock samples. We asked the lab to be very kind to us and put out a few samples for us in a rush so we could get these out to you today. And we've seen some samples that report that we've seen spodumite in the ground. So the 6.5% is indicative of spodumene mineralisation, and the 2.5% are also indicative of spodumene and lepidolite samples, although they're a bit more weathered. The rest of the samples are still at the lab, and I'm much like everybody else having to wait my turn. But while we're doing that, we're still going to continue our work. Just a few pictures of what we're seeing on the ground to get a picture of where we're at. The deep purple pegmatite is up the northern end of the tenement. It's on the tenement boundary, but fortunately for us, it dips into our ground to the west. This is where we saw our biggest spodumene samples. They're quite coarse, up to 20 to 30 centimetres, these spodumene sizes. And like the previous speaker said, coarseness is great for recoveries further down the track. We also saw lepidolite in this area as well. The creek pegmatite is about 200 metres further south. As the name suggests, it's in a creek. It's very heavily weathered here. And we do see spodumene. This is out of the 4 samples. This is the 4th sample here. We only saw 0.16% lithium in here. But we're encouraged because we're seeing spodumene. Lithium is a very mobile element, and in weathering, it does move out of the rock quite easily. So at depth, we're expecting to see higher grades, provided we've still got the spodumene there. What we're calling the big pegmatite is a new pegmatite find 2 kilometres to the south. It's quite an extensive pegmatite field in this area. The big pegmatite basically follows the line of a hill. We've seen the wall, what we call the wall rocks of a pegmatite. So we actually don't see the main lithium core of the pegmatite in these areas. We're just seeing the side expression of the pegmatite belt itself. So we're not expecting to see lithium in these rocks when we get the results back. But what we are looking for is indicated geochemistry. And one of the things we did see in our field trip out there was coarse tourmaline crystals. And for the geos in the room, coarse tourmaline is great because it means there's been lots of boron in the area. And if there's been lots of boron, there's been lots of fluid movement. So we've got a fair chance of seeing some good fractionization or some lithium development at depth. So we're waiting for our samples to come back, but we're not standing still. We're going to continue mapping and just outline these pegmatites to see how big they are. Size as well as grade is important to later economics. We're going to wait till our assays come back and we'll confirm the geochemistries to see whether they're fertile or not. And then once we've done that, we're going to start our environmental works for drilling and hopefully get drilling as soon as we can. Our other main project is Lake Rebecca. Lake Rebecca has been a great project for us over the last 2 years. It lies 150 kilometres east of Kalgoorlie, and it's in his known gold-bearing belt, the Canopy Terrain, which to the north has large mines like Granny Smith and Wallaby, and to the south in the area we are, more recent finds such as Apollo Consolidated's Rebecca deposit and Breaker Resources Lake Roe deposit. Our boundary is right on the border of Apollo Consolidated's resources, and if you're not aware, they're subject to a $182 billion takeover by Ramelius Resources, which has been quite good for our little bank balance. The Rebecca gold trend that we have, that Apollo has, extends into our ground. It's typified by wide gold zones and higher grade gold zones in the middle of them. Earlier this year, we sold a 400-metre strip of ground just north of the Apollo optimised pit in here. We sold that ground to Apollo after we drilled in there last year. But since then, this year, we've been drilling further north along trend. And the results we're seeing are very similar to the ground we just sold. So we're still seeing higher grades of 2 metres at 5 grams, 1 metre at 11 grams, 2 metres at 2, and wider intercepts of 11 at 1 gram. And we're also noticing in this year's work that we've got multiple gold trends to test, just like Apollo sees to the south. This slide is a zoom out of the previous slide. So where we were looking before was just in the bottom right-hand corner. We've zoomed out to about a 10-kilometre scale here. We're fortunate that we've got a large deposit just in our boundary, and we're using that deposit as a model for our geological targeting. We've got the same geology as what Apollo Resources has. We did 2 large-scale air core programs during the year, and we found 2 significant trends of gold mineralisation in the weathered rocks at surface. There's a 2-kilometre trend just to the immediate east of where Rebecca is, and further north, we've got a larger 7-kilometre trend. And the grades we're seeing when we drill that is very similar to what Rebecca was in historical works when it was first found back in the 1990s. 8 metres at half a gram, 2 metres at 2.7. So we're really encouraged to see what we're seeing is pretty much what Rebecca was seeing back in the early days. This work is under lake and it is undercover. Earlier this year, we applied to the Department of Mines for an exploration incentive scheme, and we were successful for next year's drilling round. So we've got work to do next year and some funding to help us along the way. I'm zooming out again, keeping with the theme of zooming out. This is the whole project area for us. It's a large area, 600 square kilometres. We've got over 40 targets identified in work, and we're progressively building a pipeline of exploration programs. So we're not just working just around the clear Rebecca area, we're also extending the rest of the work. We've recently just completed some soil sampling further south, just to keep the programs keeping along the way. We've also picked up some ground to the immediate west of Apollo's ground there, the western trend. Those are on a structural feature that currently already have known nickel and gold prospects out there. So the last zoom out slide before I change focus a bit. So we also have earlier last year, we picked up the Chifley project. The Chifley project is to the very south of this map. Oh, sorry. Just down in here. Chifley's 50 kilometres south of Lake Rebecca. It's just 20 kilometres along strike from Breaker Resources Lake Roe deposit, and it sits on the same clay pan fault structure as Lake Roe. This part of the Canopy Belt really hasn't been touched. We're starting from scratch down here. It's all undercover. There's been no exploration work done to date. We targeted the area basically based on our geological mapping from further north, looking at geophysical targets and their relationship to the existing gold deposits. So just zooming in on the tenement, we did some geophysical gravity and magnetic high mapping. We've interpreted some greenstone belts there on the contact of a granite. And we've also seen the magnetics complex folding, just like we see at Rebecca and just like Breaker Resources sees there. We've just finished a soil sampling program. I'd love to give you the results, but they're still in the lab. Hopefully there'll be plenty of news coming up with results coming out. Further north of Laverton, we have the Duketon North project. It sits 30 kilometres north of Moolart Well gold mine by Regis Resources and 30 kilometres south of a 500,000 tonne nickel deposit. It's newly granted to us. There's been some surface work done in the area, including 4 metres of 0.75 with elevated cobalt, to encourage us that there is some mineralisation in the ultramafics there. And we're also seeing some platinum group elements in the surface sampling. Other features that are important for us are we're seeing overlying EM conductors with magnetic highs, which have yet to be tested. So we've got plenty of work in front of us, even up this part of the world. And as well as these projects, we're fairly active picking up new tenements in the area. And I'll just quickly touch on those. Powder Sill Complex is 30 kilometres west of Kalgoorlie. It's just along strike on the Whitefall mine in the Powder Sill Complex itself and near the Mungari Mill. Mount Jewel sits 60 kilometres north of Kalgoorlie on a greenstone belt. We've got the Scotia and Carboy nickel mines east and west of us. Mount Farmer, which has been getting a bit of news in the local circuits these days. We picked up a tenement there that surrounds Eldoro's niobium, tantalum, lithium and a bit of rubidium project. And it's also got extensions to the Dalgaranga gold mine. And out at Warburton, there, 100 kilometres west of Neobabel, we've picked up some areas of ground that's got some historic copper workings. So these are all projects that we're looking forward to progressively bringing forward, as well as what we have in front of us just now. So that's a snapshot of where we're at. We're really building, we've got some good assets, got strong cash balance to advance those projects, and we are advancing those projects actively. We specifically target projects that are near mines or near existing resources, just for the synergies involved in that. We've shown that we can add value to what we have in the area, build our portfolio. And we're targeting basic metals, or what we consider important metals for us, gold, lithium and nickel. And we're always seeking new opportunities. At our booth, just outside there, I've got some nice samples from Ravensthorpe there with some nice spodumene crystals there. So you're welcome to come and have a look with us and have a chat. Thank you for your time.